Many of us don't have the luxury of knowing when our first NBA game was. Either our parents don't remember, or the ticket stub has been lost, or there were too many to mark it as unique. Today many arenas around the league have special areas dedicated to kids getting special swag while attending their first game, usually with a sticker, a sign, or some kind of trinket. Kids in 2019 will have photo or video record of their first game uploaded to social media, where it will live on Facebook servers until our sun goes supernova. That's why I feel lucky enough to know the exact date of my first game. It was March 21, 1999, exactly 20 years ago today. It came during a lockout-shortened season when Allen Iverson, in his third season in the NBA, would lead the league in scoring for the first time. Iverson, who was battling hip soreness and was questionable heading into the game, led his Philadelphia 76ers into the Rose Garden for a sleepy 3 p.m. game against the Portland Trail Blazers. Both squads were battling for playoff position in their respective conferences, with that Sunday's game representing the halfway point of the shortened 50-game season. The matchup would turn out to be an odd affair, with Iverson and Matt Geiger scoring for the 76ers with little help from their teammates. It would take a Herculean effort for Portland to pull ahead, with Greg Anthony annoying the future scoring champ Iverson, batting away steals and jumping passing lanes to the tune of a 31-point Blazers fourth quarter. Portland would get the win, 95-71, in what now might be looked at as a laughably late 90s NBA score. All this was witnessed by a crowd of 19,980, including a 10-year-old Dane Delgado sitting right behind the Philadelphia bench in Section 103, Row B, Seat 4. I was there with my friend Jacob Davis, his cousin Corey, and his father Bob, who had secured the tickets through his work. This 20-year anniversary was a special moment for me, and thanks to our friends over at the Trailblazers, NBC Sports Northwest was able to secure the entire video broadcast of the game. It's not often in our lives we get to relive one of the critical moments of our childhood in its entirety, with the full production value that comes with an NBA broadcast. So I decided to watch my first ever NBA game, with my own face in full view on the left edge of the backboard during every possession at the north end of the floor. I had eyes on this game once as an adolescent, and now I have it as an adult, as someone who covers the NBA and this team for a living, no less. It felt like there might be some treasure left to unbury from the video archives at the start of Iverson's NBA, so without further ado, here's some of the takeaways from rewatching my first game 2 decades later. There's too many post-ups. Watching this game got to be sort of a joke after a while, particularly from perspective of how the offense works in contrast to today's game. The modern NBA has shifted in the past few years in the amount of three-pointers taken, but having seen some old games before, it also surprises you how few common actions are missing from a game like this just 20 years ago. The pick and roll is absent, at least on scale, and although the point guard revolution from 2008 to 2012 has passed us by, the two-man game is a staple in 2019. That didn't appear to be the case in this 1999 matchup, with no more evidence being clearer than in this play early in the first quarter. If this play was run in 2019, you might expect Damon Stoudemire to run across screens on the weak side, receive a pass in front of the Blazers bench, then move into a sideline pick and roll with Arvydas Sabonis. Instead, he wastes 5 seconds of shot clock trying to get an entry pass so Sabonis can hit his patented sweep hook. After watching this whole game, Portland tried to post up nearly every single player on their roster outside of Stoudemire. By contrast, Philadelphia's game plan was to give Iverson the ball and let him do his thing. Our NBA players bad at basketball. As this game opened, I remember thinking in 1999 that these two teams were not as good at basketball as I was hoping. Watching game film back, it appears they might have been feeling a bit lethargic on a mid-afternoon game on a Sunday. Here's what the first 2:30 of gameplay looked like from a play-by-play standpoint. Fight, miss 19-foot jumper, poor turnover. Iverson scores poor. Sabonis scores on a sweep hook. Fight, missed 17-foot jumper, poor. Rasheed Wallace point-blank miss feet. Missed Iverson three-pointer, poor. Missed point-blank Stoudemire layup feet. Missed Matt Geiger hook shot, poor. Wallace airball. It got better from there, at least for Portland. The Sixers wound up scoring just 75 points in the game. Local TV legends the old Blazer Vision had Bill Schonely and Ann Schatz calling this game, not to mention the late Steve "Snapper" Jones as the color man during the actual broadcast. Everything about the production, particularly in the three-dimensionality of the intro, screamed 1999. If a graphic could have a gradient on it, it did, and that went the double for the local television ads that ran during the breaks. The Northwest Ford store and Godfather's Pizza ads were something else. But check out this intro. Greg Anthony went ham on Iverson. Greg Anthony averaged double-digit points once in his career, adding 14 ppg in 1995-96 when he was with the Vancouver Grizzlies. Anthony was a career backup, and the athletic, annoying, pestering guard had the capacity to aggravate star players from opposing sidelines. Anthony was the saving grace for the Blazers in this game, and boy did they need it. The teams combined for 30 points in the third quarter alone, and despite playing with a nagging hip ailment, Iverson was on his way to scoring big points heading into the fourth quarter. The pesky 30-year-old was everywhere, helping to force Iverson into 4 turnovers, including during a stretch run midway through the fourth that helped Portland contain the 76ers to 16 points. These performances in front of kids are the things that make uneven impressions, and no doubt I forever gave Anthony too much credit as a defensive mastermind. The reality is that Anthony was a career -0.4 defensive box plus-minus player, although 1999 was one of 3 positive DBPM seasons for him. To me, he was the guy who shut down Iverson until I was around 20 years old. Rick Mahorn yelled at me after the game. Face.jpg Rick Mahorn, seated, watches a play in Mar. 21, 1999. The author sits behind him, white hat, second row behind the railing. Rick Mahorn was a bad boy with the Detroit Pistons, winning the 1989 NBA championship and taking home all defensive honors in 1990. The bad boys were badasses, and not to be trifled with in an era where physicality and brute force were more accepted as part of the game. So perhaps I should have expected Mahorn to yell at a 10-year-old Dane Delgado. Because of where our seats were located, behind the Sixers bench and to the right of the visitors' hallway, we were able to move to the railing where players from Philadelphia were signing autographs at the conclusion of the game. Jake's dad had given me a Sharpie and the In Arena magazine to collect signatures, but I had never done that before and I was less than confident. At the railing, I failed to recognize anybody outside of Matt Geiger. Iverson was gone, and not knowing what the protocol was but seeing everyone else leaning over the railing with pens and paper, I simply did the same. Eventually Mahorn made his way to my outstretched Sharpie and looked in my direction. A pregnant silence filled as our eyes met, and the forehead of the 40-year-old bruiser slowly wrinkled. My childhood pal Jacob Davis described the moment from his point of view in a recent phone interview with NBC Sports Northwest. He turned and looked to you, and you just sort of held the magazine out to him, laughed Davis. Maybe it was wanting to defer to an adult, or maybe it was shock from the sheer size of the 6'10" Mahorn standing just feet away from me, but I didn't dare utter the first word. Perhaps it was his duty to say something as the player, and I as a child? It's been 2 decades and I still haven't decided who was in the wrong. In either case, Mahorn didn't bite. Sky doubled down. Then you just held it out to him again, very imploringly. It was very obvious what you wanted, said Davis. The air hung between us, and eventually Mahorn practically spit the words at me. What? You can't talk. Mahorn then walked away, taking a couple steps before eventually realizing his error and returning back to the stricken grade schooler. Nahorn took the issue of Rip City magazine that Bob had brought for this occasion, dutifully signing the photo of Blazers guard Jim Jackson before issuing me some advice about speaking up and asking players directly. Rip-City-Magazine. Rip City magazine from March 1999. When he came back, he was like, I'm sorry, said Davis. As I walked back to Jake and his dad, they looked at me expectantly. Who'd you get? I looked at Jacob, then at Bob, then back at the magazine. I studied the lines on the cover, trying to read each squiggle letter by letter to read it out. Finally, I gave him the answer about the signature from the NBA player who yelled at me for not being able to talk. I don't know, to this day I still can't find the damn magazine. Rick, if you're reading this, I need a replacement autograph. This time I'll be sure to ask directly.